You know why I'm ready for the fall? There's one reason. I know everybody always listen, I like the fall, but everybody's always in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry to get through the summer months. I don't really mind the heat. I grew up in Texas, but I do have the new Anchor hoodie. And I'm eager to have a legitimate excuse to put it on. I can't put it on now because I will sweat through it so aggressively that it will disintegrate. My name is Brian Bandas. I'm building a real estate development company. I'm becoming a better father, a better husband, a better entrepreneur, and a better man every single day. Let's get it. So welcome back to the channel, everybody. So glad you're joining me. I wanted to talk a little bit more about this $10 million goal, and I wanted to put some meat on the bone, not of how to execute the goal, which we talked about last week, but I wanted to talk about why is this the goal. So let's get into it. What is the purpose of the $10 million per year goal for my company? Because I can tell you right now, this may come as a shock to you, my family and I can live pretty comfortably off of less than $10 million per year. We've been doing that pretty well so far. You can probably tell by my fancy temporary desk area right now. For those of you who didn't know, we are renovating our home, and so we are displaced at the moment. As you can tell by my temporary desk area, I don't need it to be super fancy. So why $10 million per year? So the first and main answer is that it forces me to grow. It forces me to think in ways I wouldn't normally think. It forces me to become the type of person, in particular the type of business person, but also a person who is emotionally healthy enough to think in these bigger terms than I have in the past, right? So let me give you a few examples. Example one, as you saw in the video that I just referenced from 2 weeks ago, where I explained the plan of how to build this $10 million per year company. That's the first example, is that I've never had to scrutinize and problem solve and play with numbers and budgets the way I had to come up with that plan. It wasn't something that I could just naturally sort of accidentally stumble into. There are really big questions about scalability, about hiring. I know that if you go back to that video, if I do 120 deals in a year, I know that I can't do that alone. I've got to have help. And so now I have to think through, who am I hiring? How easy or difficult is it going to be to find those people? Who's training them? I train them all. Are they training each other? What does that look like? And so the first is that it has caused me to have to plan and scrutinize and budget, etc., to a degree that I've never had to do before. If I wanted to do even, let's say, $500,000 to $1 million a year, if I get good enough at this, that just doesn't require the same amount of care as the $10 million per year goal. The second example is this general fund that I've been talking to you guys about. By the way, it is currently open. If you're watching this, you're interested in investing some money with me and my company, backed by the still thriving Nashville real estate market, go to the website, anchortn.com/invest. And let's get in touch. I can tell you about it. We can talk and see if this is the right fit for you. So I have this general fund now that I identified as really the linchpin to opening up the possibilities of the type of growth I'm talking about, particularly in some of the time frames I'm talking about, which would be a 3 to maybe 5 year growth curve instead of 10. That is something that only came about because I wasn't willing to settle for, whatever I can do based on what I have in my pocket or what I have in my bank account right now. Specifically a result of having this goal and forcing me to think in bigger ways and figure out how to solve this problem. Another example is systems. My project manager and I have spent a lot of time, and my salesperson and I are slowly working through it as well, starting to develop systems with not right now in mind, with 3 of us on the team, but with a team that's 3 years from now where we've got 15 people and we're running 120 deals through per year. What systems do we need in place for that to run smoothly? I can tell you right now, the systems that we currently have would not work. So those are 3 examples of ways that having this goal has forced me to think differently than I ever have in the past. I mean, there's discomfort that comes along with that, right? And yet I know from experience, and I know this isn't an original thought, right? If you're following success literature, reading business stuff, then everybody has said this. I have to go where I become uncomfortable. That space then becomes comfortable, and my comfort zone is now bigger than it used to be. And so for me, it's been very uncomfortable to think in terms of 120 deals and 7 or 8 project managers, and how do I find 10 deals per month in order to do that, right? There's a lot of aspects of this that I don't know the answer to, and not knowing the answer is really uncomfortable. And so I know that not only is that the linchpin to my company growing, but it's the linchpin to me growing into who I've got to become. So if I can't achieve the goal within certain parameters, then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with choosing a different goal, right? I'm okay with hitting maybe a lower goal or something like that, right? Let me tell you what I mean. My 2 parameters are this. I want to build this $10 million per year company within parameter A, which is I will not sacrifice my marriage or my relationship with my kids. I'm not going to go full workaholic. I'm not going to neglect them. I'm not going to get home at 9:30 every night and leave at 6:30 a.m. and never see them and like, congratulations, your dad's rich and buys you a bunch of crap and you never see him. That is not a win. And so that's one parameter of this goal, is that I want to, so I guess what I'm saying is the entire goal is build this into a $10 million per year company without neglecting my family, and B, without neglecting myself and my own personal health and happiness. So one example would be, as you guys know, especially if you follow me on Instagram, one example would be, I'm not going to stop taking care of my body. I'm not going to stop going to the gym, working out, running, whatever it is that is helping me to feel healthy and alive. I'm not going to stop doing that because I'm so busy making $10 million. And if I discover that without doing that, I can't make 10 million a year, and I can only build a company that makes 5 or 3 million a year, or 1, or maybe I'm there now. If I discovered that the only way to hit the goal was to neglect those things, my family or my personal sort of health, happiness, fulfillment, joy, I'm not going to do it. So my goal is actually, the full goal is make $10 million a year in my company, do it without neglecting my family and without neglecting myself. And so that brings me to another interesting question, which somebody asked me a couple days ago. This person said, well, if you don't hit 10 million a year, like, is that okay or is that a failure? And my answer is, it depends on why. So if I don't hit 10 million a year, first of all, you and I both know I don't need 10 million to survive. And if I have a year, my best year, and we make $8 million, that's a hell of a year. So my answer is, if I don't hit $10 million a year, and it's because I prioritize my family and myself and discovered that without breaking those parameters, $10 million a year is not available, then that doesn't feel like a failure to me, and I'm fine with that. On the flip side, if I don't hit 10 million a year simply because I didn't want to push myself and I didn't want to get too uncomfortable, and I could have done it within those parameters and I just didn't because I didn't sort of leave it all on the field, that is a failure. So it really depends on why. And when I talk about failure, as we've already discussed, it's not like, oh, we're failing, we're in trouble financially, right? It has everything to do with me exploring and discovering who I am and what I'm capable of doing. And so that's why my answer is, if I discovered the boundaries of my potential and it was an $8 million per year company and I poured myself into it, that's not a failure. I'm good with that. So I hope that's insightful for you. I'm assuming that you've got some big goals as well. If you're watching this, we're probably cut from the same cloth in some way, right? You're trying to build a business, you're trying to accomplish something. So I would ask you to consider, like, what are the parameters? To put it really bluntly, I'm not willing to sacrifice my family to build this company. The company comes second to family, right? It comes second to my own happiness and mental health and physical health. Being rich and not feeling physically or emotionally or spiritually healthy does not sound fun to me, and I have no interest in that. And so I'm curious, what are your parameters? What are the parameters of your goal to build a business within what boundaries? I think that's a pretty valuable thing to consider and to know, because for me now, I can go, hey, I didn't make 10 million a year, but I didn't violate those boundaries. Listen, thanks for spending a few minutes with me. If you are getting something out of this, you're enjoying learning about real estate development and talking together about how to build a business from the ground up, then hook me up with one of those and one of those and one of those, and I'll see you soon. Oh shoot, guys, hey, one other thing I almost forgot. I have a book that I wrote about real estate development. I'm going to be honest, it's short, it's an easy read, it is certainly not a novel. Couldn't tell you the number of pages or words right now off the top of my head, but it's a pretty good cursory glance at real estate development. You're not ready to invest in the Deal Architect course yet, you're not sure, I understand. So the book is coming. Give me a few weeks to a month or so to iron out the details of getting this thing printed and published. Keep an eye out, it's coming your way. Talk to you soon.